In the heart of Dixie where the eagles fly, land of the brave where the bullets don't lie. We fought for our freedom with guns by our side. Red, white, and blue, our southern pride. Raise the flag high, let freedom ring from the rolling mountains to the flatlands. We sing, no one can take our rights. Our Second Amendment will defend our land. With every bullet we stand. We were born in the USA.
Well, hey there. I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, we're going to get into some stuff today, and we're going to cover a little bit more about the Trump shooting or attempted assassination or the attempted murder of Donald J. Because honestly, there's been another big report come out. Well, when I said big report, it's 6 pages long. But the thing is, this report is from a different perspective. This is not one of these pre-canned government reports. If you've watched any of the hearings, they can sit there and talk to so-and-so from the Secret Service or so-and-so from the FBI, and words go back and forth for an hour, but next to nothing is said besides, we're looking into it. We'll get back to you. We need to check on that. That's a good idea. Yes, thank you for the question, Senator, but I have no idea, and I can't or won't answer it. So you watch all this stuff, and it's like, oh, we don't learn anything. We don't hear anything. There's nothing tangible. Well, this report is from a different person. It's kind of a different kind of person. It's someone who I've followed for a while. It's somebody who's got an actual background in law enforcement. No offense to a lot of our Congress people, our senators, our representatives. They don't know one end of a popo unit from another. They've never done investigations. So for them to conduct a thorough investigation, they're doing something that they don't know. They may be asking good questions. They may be on the right place. But honestly, that's not their, world. Think of, Thomas Massey, brilliant guy, brilliant engineer. Don't know how many crime scenes he's worked. Even Rand Paul, who I think the world of, and I love his philosophy, I love his ideas on liberty, but he's not a cop. He's never been a cop. He's an ophthalmologist. He's a doctor. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't want a cop working on my eyes, and I don't know if I'd want Rand Paul or Thomas Massey trying to do a crime scene investigation of an attempted homicide scene. But there is one person who has actually spent his life in law enforcement, working crime scenes, working the streets, somebody who, kind of a cop's cop. Now, if you're not familiar with this dude, I'm going to share it with you. Captain, and I will still call him Captain, even though he's no longer with the Sheriff's Department, but he is Captain Clay Higgins. He spent quite some time in law enforcement, quite a name for himself. He did so well in law enforcement, they elected him in to the House of Representatives. Now, I want to give you a little background on Captain Higgins before we look at his report. The guy is a straight shooter. He calls it like he sees it. If you don't like his opinions, you don't like his thoughts, that's fine. He might ruffle a few feathers. Then again, so does the Donald. So seems like it would be the kind of guy we'd want investigating an attempt on his life. Now, let's check out Captain Higgins here for a second. This video came out from him years ago, and I had seen some of his videos, but this one is great. He's talking about a group of street gang members who had been wreaking havoc in the community around that he served. And so therefore, he came out and he decided he was going to call these people out. I clipped this video over from YouTube, who's got it from KATC TV, ABC down in Louisiana. This is Captain Higgins.
Gang is responsible for hundreds of violent crimes, murders, armed robberies, witness intimidation, burglaries, drug trafficking, extortion, and brutal beatings. We've arrested 10 of these thugs and have warrants on 7 more. Every one of these animals is most definitely armed and dangerous. Darren Carter, Aaron Carter, Travis Cooper, Cody Guidry, Jaron Diggs, Kirkland Demochet, and Jonathan Landry. We have felony warrants for your arrest. You will be hunted. You will be tracked. And if you raise your weapon to a man like me, will return fire with superior fire. Darren Carter, you think men like these are afraid of an uneducated 125-pound punk like you that's never won a fair fight in your life and holds your gun sideways? Young man, I'll meet you on solid ground anytime, anywhere, light or heavy. Makes no difference to me. You won't walk away. Look at you. Men like us, son, we do dumbbell presses with weights bigger than you. And the convicts in jail, most of those men are good people who just found themselves crossed with the law. They're not evil, and they don't respect you or any punk like you. They'll toss you around like a rag doll. I encourage every citizen watching this to look into your own heart and find the American courage that conquers all evil. I implore you to listen to this message and stand up. Take back your streets. Take back your country. Come forward with information about these heathens that have terrorized your community. And for those who would use this message as a way to create false racial division in our country, take a close look behind me. Standing next to every cop is a leader of our black community. This is not about race. It's about right versus wrong. One last message to the gremlins. You don't like the things I've told you tonight? I got one thing to say. I'm easy to find. On behalf of the St. Landry Parish Sheriff's Office, the Louisiana State Police, the U.S. Marshals, and every cop and law-abiding citizen from sea to shining sea, I'm Captain Clay Higgins, asking every patriot to stand up, share this video, and send a clear message to the world. We're Americans. We'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees.
Yeah, I don't think Captain Higgins is one to mince words. He calls it like he sees it. But again, he's a lawman. He's done this. He's in, his happy zone. I often joke about the fact that, Elon Musk may be a very, very, very brilliant, successful man. I don't know how well he'd do in the back of an ambulance. I don't know half of what he does, but you know what? If you're sick, you might want me in the back rather than him. So again, we sort of deal with that situation where we're trying to figure this out. Well, one thing that I've laughed at with all these investigations is, again, they say a lot of words, but we don't see anything from it. So from that standpoint, I kind of wonder where we're going with the whole thing. So Clay Higgins comes out with his investigation, and it's a preliminary report, and it just came out recently. And again, reading it through, he says more than a lot of these people are saying. And so therefore, I want to dig in a little bit to his thought, his game plan, what he found. Because honestly, I respect him as an investigator more than I do a lot of the politically correct investigators, so to speak. We'll check this one out here, see what we can come up with. We'll share this over, and we're going to go over his report. I want to see what Clay Higgins has to say, because you know what? He's an investigator, and he is going to give us more information in this. Let's see, here we go. Okay. Hopefully that is somewhat legible for y'all. I'm going to try to blow it up here as best I can when we cover this stuff, because this said a lot, and it was really interesting for me to watch. Now, if you're not, if you don't remember, when we started talking about this, I said for a while that my opinion, for what it's worth, and I didn't know anything, I said, a lot of people said, oh, they let it happen. They made it happen. There was an inside job. There was that. I'm not saying there wasn't, and I couldn't at the time prove there wasn't, but so much of what we kept hearing looked like the big C. Yeah, complacency. Complacency. Did they get lazy? Did they just let it, happen? Not because of it's Trump and they don't like him and they want him dead. Did they just oops and screw the pooch? It's been 41 years since someone took a pot shot at the president. Well, maybe that some of the people in charge of the bodyguard detail might have gotten a little bit complacent. It's just one more event. We're going into campaign season. oh, they're tired, they're burned out, they're overworked. I know being on the Secret Service got to be a really cool job. Honestly, at least our local officers, you work local officers around here, local PD, local sheriff's office, you work your 2 or 3 days on or your 2 or 3 nights on, you get your couple off, and it works your cycle. And yeah, you miss a bunch of holidays, and yeah, nights and weekends suck. And, calling 4:30 in the afternoon, wake up time, it gets rough. These folks are doing the same thing, except traveling all over the country, packing, unpacking, living out of hotels, living out of suitcases. And it's easy to get a little bit tired, a little bit complacent, burned out, a little bit of going through the motions here. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to find. So let's dig into Higgins' report here and see what we've got. This was released out August 12th, 2024. Preliminary report to Chairman Mike Kelly, Investigative Authority House Bipartisan Task Force on the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Author of preliminary report, Congressman Clay Higgins. The report is preliminary, not conclusive. The preliminary observations are considered sensitive, confidential, and intended for investigative purposes only. This investigation is ongoing. Now, goes through, and we're going to go through this after appropriate arrangement through the Congressional Office Task Force of Chairman Mike Kelly, whose district encompasses Butler County, Pennsylvania, where the assassination attempt occurred on July 13, 2024, heretofore referred to as J13. I traveled to Butler County on Sunday, August 4th. Okay, so a little bit after, leaving the area on August 6th. During my time on the ground in Pennsylvania, I was able to focus about 20 hours on my initial investigative endeavor. As always, my investigation was focused on hard evidence and facts, specific observations guided by instinct and experience. My overall mission was to personally observe and investigate the available crime scene, along with consideration of both anticipated and unanticipated interactions with witnesses, the crime scene landscape, hard evidence, corroborative evidence, and circumstantial evidence. My total investigative intent was to carefully observe and listen to, document, and consider the totality of the circumstance surrounding the attempted assassination of President Trump. Be calm, move slowly to the center, and let the crime scene talk to you. This advice was to me given as a young patrol cop from a renowned investigator many years ago. That was my purpose as I traveled to Butler, to let the crime scene talk to me. In many ways, this preliminary report is essentially what the crime scene told me when I listened. Okay. Again, a long-term professional investigator. He wants to see what the crime scene talks to him. Go for it, brother. Now, Mr. Chairman, our task force has a tremendous responsibility to reveal the full truth, whatever that truth may be, to the American people. And our task force has been granted full congressional investigative authority. Confidentially, I was on the ground in Butler Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, as clarified above. I was accompanied and assisted by retired SWAT operator John Schotten, my congressional district director prior to Congress. I served with District Director Schotten in law enforcement for many years. I was fully supported by your office, and my 20 years of uninhibited, intensive investigative effort was quietly and extensively supported by local law enforcement leadership. It's important to note that Pennsylvania law enforcement is coordinated a bit differently than most sovereign states. During my efforts in investigation in Butler County, I was greatly assisted by ESU Commander Edward Lenz and Butler County District Attorney's Office Senior Detective William Mayhew. The Butler County ESU is well-established, well-equipped, and trained in tactical unit drawn from tactical unit officers across the county, who serve in various police departments. So, okay, you've got a Butler County ESU is drawn from the Sheriff's Department as well as other PDs through the county, and they work as a unified resource, a built unified resource. This is the way it's done in a lot of smaller areas. Let's face it, NYPD, they're kind of big. They've got enough to have their own ESU. You go out to more rural areas, they say, okay, we're going to do a countywide team. We'll get a few people from each of the teams or each agency within the county. We'll build a team, we'll drill it together, but that way no team has the single, if you've only got 14 people on your roster, you can't have your whole department be your SWAT team, but you might get 4 or 5 who are interested, and 2 or 3 from that PD, and 2 or 3 from that PD, and 2 or 3 from that PD. I've seen that done not only for technical rescue, for short SWAT, that type of thing. It's a very, very normal arrangement. Now, it's interesting when you talk about, again, they're trained from across the county, various police departments. ESU is the equivalent to a combination of the traditional sheriff's office SWAT team, special weapons and tactics, and CERT, or SRT, special response team. Again, tomato, really, honestly. If you're going to call it a Big Mac or a Whopper, it's still a burger. It's just sometimes slightly different components. A lot of times they'll have, hostage, they'll have tracking, maybe fugitive teams, whatever, depending on warrant service, barricade suspect, Butler County ESU handles all tactical missions for the county, including missions that interact with visiting law enforcement agencies like the U.S. Marshals, fugitive team likely, ATF, FBI, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Secret Service. Security for J-13 was controlled by the U.S. Secret Service, and local law enforcement assistance for the Secret Service was coordinated through ESU. This coordination included several shared responsibilities for tactical teams on and around Butler County Fairgrounds, where the J-13 Trump rally was held. Now, the fairgrounds, commonly called the Farm by the mainstream media. ESU also coordinated non-tactical operator law enforcement assistance for J-13, such as patrol officers in the larger area handling traffic, crowd control, as well as staged at points as response units should there be a need for, say, a protest or a fight. Vehicle crash. These are all possibilities at things like J-13. Think about just having a wreck on an access road in or out when you've got that much traffic going out to the farm grounds. Can be a big deal. I'm going to blow this up, see if I can get a little bit better for you. Let's see. Trying to get it where it's big enough, but not so big that we can't see it on the screen here. Hopefully y'all can read that. I'm trying my best here. So again, we've got ESU for tactical SWAT element. We've got Secret Service out there, and we've also got the regular road officers coordinated by way of ESU, dealing with traffic control in the area, car crashes, anything else. If there's an additional need for law enforcement for, say, a fight or a protest or a scuffle in the parking lot, or let's say like Antifa shows up and they decide to tear up some MAGA flags and decide they want to get into a scuffle. Might not work out well for them, but hey, at least they got law enforcement there to cry to after they get a couple of MAGAs kick their ass. Anyway, so as we go through here, Lenz worked for a couple of weeks prior to J-13 to coordinate the entire Butler County law enforcement support for the Secret Service as requested by Secret Service, and ultimately under the command of the U.S. Secret Service, command related to deployment of areas of responsibility. Scroll down here. For the purposes of the preliminary report, I would like to clarify again that this report isn't intended as an investigation to promote discussion amongst task force members and encourage well-disciplined further investigation. Many questions and considerations remain, and our full investigation will require months of endeavor. However, after 20 hours on the ground at Butler, I have indeed listened carefully to the crime scene, and it whispered to me many answers that America must know, as deemed appropriate by Chairman Kelly. Many considerations were cleared up, like clutter, which allows for an investigator to focus on our central questions that remain. Bigger considerations. I'm working on assembling a much more thorough initial investigative report, which will include tremendous amount of digital imagery and documented observation and explanation. The next report I will submit for Chairman Kelly's review will have much more comprehensive and will require a few weeks to produce because the amount of raw data I have harvested and documented is vast. Folks, this is why, again, I know Captain Higgins or Clay Higgins is in politics right now, but again, we got to go with the fact that he's kind of in his element here as far as dealing with law enforcement stuff. Now, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to blow this up full screen and get my ugly mug off the screen, because after all, you want to see the report. You don't want to see my ugly mug on here. And there's a lot of really, really interesting things. I want to make sure we get the whole thing out of it for you. So hold on one second. Alrighty, I've got it blown up like this, so hopefully you can see it. We'll cover it as we go through, and I'll get it out of my way here. Observations of note. Prior to arranging travel to Butler, I had reviewed and filed scores of videos and recreations from online sources. Like many Americans, I invested countless hours of personal research. However, effective investigation requires objective investigation. I researched what I could in preparation for any role I might be called upon to serve. When Speaker Johnson advised me that I had been appointed to the task force, I had already begun investigating. My first text regarding J13 was 3 minutes after the shooting, and I have not stopped investigating since then. Whether you like Mike Johnson or don't, I will give him credit for this one. He's using his resources wisely. He's got a law enforcement investigator in his pocket. Send Congressman Higgins, Louisiana's 3rd District, because he might know a little bit about crime scenes. The Butler County Fairgrounds is a fairgrounds, not a farm. Yes, it has barns to accommodate agriculture and livestock shows and fairs, but it is not an actual farm in the middle of a broad rural area. It's a long-standing, very well-maintained, large fairgrounds in the middle of Butler, Pennsylvania. The Butler Farm, a well-known fairgrounds, a small city in a rural county, is, one might concur, an excellent place for a Trump rally. Generations of Pennsylvanians have attended the events at the Butler Farm County Fairgrounds. Large crowds could be accommodated, and those crowds would be familiar and comfortable in the fairgrounds environment. He goes on, AGR Research is an internationally owned corporation. However, AGR was born of a glass research scientist in Butler in 1929. In 1962, he sold his company, which became American Glass Research. AGR was incorporated into a larger company in 2024, but the people on the ground at AGR are generationally connected to the company. One of those men is William Bellis, who assisted my investigation at AGR for several hours on Monday, August 5th. He was 100% accommodating. According to my investigation, U.S. Secret Service had never, prior to J13, assigned a counter sniper team to a former president of the United States, including Trump. I will not be 100% certain of this assertion without further investigation into documented records, but U.S. Secret Service counter sniper teams stated clearly to ESU command that they had never been deployed to a former POTUS event, nor had they ever heard of a prior deployment by other U.S. Secret Service counter sniper teams. Now, we think for a second. Secret Service assigns resources based on title. President, Vice President, spouse of the President, Dr. Jill, spouse of the Vice President, Dougie. I don't think the mistress gets coverage, but we won't worry about that, or the babysitter or whatever he was. Yeah, we won't go there. But we look at this. Donald is a former president, so he's never had a counter sniper team assigned to any of those events. Now, maybe if they did it based on threat level instead of just titles, because I have a feeling that possibly Donald Trump has more threats against him from not only domestic, but is definitely foreign, and Iran and everything else, than maybe George Bush might have, or George Jr. So, I don't think, Bill Clinton has quite the risk profile that Trump has. So maybe we need to do it by threat level, not by title. That's, again, a long-standing Secret Service policy. Maybe that needs to be fixed. Now, this gets really interesting Butler County runs the radio communications tower out of their 911 call center. That's pretty much the way radio communications work across America in every city and every state. If their radios are interoperable, a visiting law enforcement agency is assigned a frequency or a channel, a talk group for operation while in that county. If the radios are not interoperable, which means they don't network together, the county communications, then the visiting agency is assigned or offered physical actual radios to use while they're running their operation in the county. It's the same thing. If your radios can network with ours, great, we'll all come up on the same frequency. If we don't have that capability, we have radios that you can use. Now, it gets better. The U.S. Secret Service did not retrieve the radios that had been set aside for them by Butler County Tactical Command. The radio comms were properly and perfectly arranged during an extensive pre-mission planning on J-12. The Butler County ESU commander personally reminded the Secret Service counter-sniper teams to pick up their assigned radios at the command post RV, which was positioned according to planning at the fairgrounds the following morning before 1100 hours. So on the 12th, they assign radios out. They've got an extra bank of radios. They personally remind the counter-sniper teams, when you get here tomorrow, make sure you pick up your radios at the RV. It was sitting there at 11 o'clock that morning. Never happened. They never picked up a radio. Why could no one talk to each other? Why are we hearing about their talking on text groups? This is why. Radio traffic transmitted through a county radio tower 911 call center is recorded. Chairman Kelly and I have a timeline and transcripts of all local radio traffic provided by ESU Commander Lenz. Now, we've not been able to get a timeline from Secret Service yet he's already got all this from Butler. Butler seems like they're being pretty straightforward on this. Again, I can't say who's at fault or who did what or who dropped the ball, but when you've got one person who says, look, I'll cover anything you want to know, I'll tell you anything, I'll show you anything, and the other one says, yeah, we'll get back to you, we're looking into that, we'll get back to you. How about the Braves? Yeah. Yeah. As provided by ESU Commander Lenz, Chairman Kelly and I also have other ESU Secret Service J-13 briefing files, including pre-mission briefing plan from ESU and Secret Service, counter-sniper pre-mission briefing graphs. So he's pretty much got a lot here. The videos circulating on the internet that appear to show a muzzle flash from inside the AGR building from a window below Crook's firing position on the roof of the AGR building. I carefully examined this window inside and out. I reviewed the AGR employee who's worked in that office for many years. The window does not open and has never opened. The muzzle flash from inside the window was either a digital fabrication, possibly an iPhone light or iPhone camera flash reflected from the glass of the window. There was a question at one point about multiple shooters. And there was a question, someone said they thought they saw something inside the building that the shooter was on. And he's kind of debunking that. Said, look, I walked in that office. The window doesn't open. The window hasn't opened. And the window is there and intact. The chance somebody shot through a window that doesn't open. And again, he's met with the employee who works in that office who said, no, that's the same window. No one's replaced it. No one took it out. No one's done nothing. So, okay, we can debunk that. Crooks did not have a ladder at AGR on J-13. He accessed the roof by climbing onto an air conditioning unit. I reenacted his climb with no problem. The whole theory of someone walked up carrying a 15 or 20 foot or 10 foot or 5 foot, 8 foot ladder, all the stuff about he may have gone to Home Depot that day. He may well have bought all kinds of ladders that day. He did not walk up there with a ladder that day. He went off the air conditioning, the HVAC unit, and up on there. Now, he mentions a limitation of his investigation. I have not yet investigated Crook's origins, how he came to be a shooter, how he manufactured a remote trigger bomb, etc. I have not reviewed the harvested evidence, nor have I examined his home, his vehicle, spoken with family members, neighbors, classmates, examined his computer, his emails, or his closet. I have not investigated the life and actions of Thomas Matthew Crooks outside of his actions directly on J13, but I will, we will, we're just getting started. Again, he's focusing largely on the crime scene and the mechanics there. You can then break down the shooter's background and different things prior to that. 8 shots were fired by Crooks from his firing and dying position on the AGR rooftop. The position provided excellent concealment for Crooks from the northern counter sniper team due to the foliage and branches of 2 trees. Crooks' firing position did not offer excellent concealment from the southern counter sniper team. However, it should be noted that the would-be assassin perfectly positioned himself to minimize the threat of counterfire from the ground or the sniper teams. Crooks' firing position was also several feet back from the actual peak of the AGR roof. By choosing this position, Crooks effectively minimized the skyline profile of his head and upper body. Now, I'm going to stop for a second on that one. We talked about how he was not immediately visible to the North Counter Sniper team. Remember, I said this a long time ago. We saw the counter snipers up on the roof looking and looking and looking, and I always tried to figure out, what are they looking at? What are they looking at so hard? There's the dum-dum. Go shoot the dum-dum. There he is, right on the roof. Well, we talked about it a little bit in one of our videos, and we said, I want to look through their scope. This would be their view with the naked eye. It would look something like this. And if we actually were able to zoom in, we'd get something that looked more like this. If they dialed in their scope, if they had a variable optic, which chances are Secret Service would have the Cadillacs of optics. Well, what are they seeing? Who's that behind there? I've got movement. I can't tell what it is. I'm looking. I'm straining. I'm trying to figure out what that is. Okay, come off the scope for a minute. Damn it. And you have to wonder, is that another cop? Is there supposed to be someone on that building? The last thing we want to do, of course, and you all know it, is have a tragic incident of a friendly fire where a Secret Service takes down local law enforcement. So, yeah, that was what they were seeing, which can explain a little bit. And again, we've talked about it in these videos. There's, some of what's coming out. All 8 casings were recovered and allegedly in proper possession of the FBI. Thomas Matthew Crooks' rifle is also allegedly in the proper possession of the FBI. I will need to examine all of the physical evidence that has been harvested by law enforcement and is in the possession of the FBI. All of it. You notice he's not playing favorites. He's running an investigation. I want to see everything. I'm not saying FBI good, Secret Service bad, or anything else. No, I want the evidence. And so we can go with that. Alrighty. The 9th shot fired on J13 was from a Butler County SWAT operator from the ground about 100 yards away from the AGR building. Shot number 9 hit Crooks' rifle stock and fragged his face, neck, and right shoulder area from the stock breaking up. The SWAT operator who took this shot was a total badass. When he sighted the shooter, Crooks had mostly obscured foliage, moving target on the AGR rooftop. He immediately left his assigned post, ran toward the threat, running to clear shot position directly into the line of fire while Crooks was firing 8 rounds. On his own, I believe this ESU SWAT operator took a very hard shot. One shot. He stopped Crooks, and importantly, I believe the shot damaged the buffer tube on Crooks' AR. And I won't be certain of this until I can examine the rifle. I'm 99% sure, based on reliable eyewitness ESU tactical officers who observed his rifle before the FBI harvested it. That means if the AR buffer tube was damaged, Crooks' rifle wouldn't fire after his 8th shot. That may have been what stopped him from getting additional shots off. Now, again, when we look at this whole thing, we haven't heard this before. So it was an ESU dude who sees this guy lining up a shot. He's got to get in position so he can get a shot. Crooks opens up with some shots. We have a shot from Butler ESU. The best he can get is a shot that hits the guy's rifle, damages the rifle by hitting the buffer tube area, also breaks apart and frags his face and neck area. Okay. As we move on here, Crooks went down from his firing position when shot number 9 was fired, and the SWAT officer was certain of his hit. According to the ESU SWAT sniper, Crooks recovered after a few seconds and popped back up. The 10th, and I believe final shot, was fired from the Southern counter sniper team. I will not be 100% certain of this until further investigation. However, I am quite sure the Secret Service Southern counter sniper team fired the killing shot, which, according to my investigation, entered somewhere around the left mouth area and exited the right ear, here to here. Instant over. This entry exit aligns with the Southern counter sniper team's position. Now, very detailed. Couple things he's going to note here that kind of blow his mind and cause him a few concerns. The FBI released all first responders that evening, much to everyone's surprise. I interviewed several EMS, cops, etc. Folks, if you're on a crime scene of this magnitude, the fact that you get released that evening when we know the shot happened at 6:00 something roughly, yeah, there's a question there. Usually they will separate everyone out and get statements and do all this. You don't get home from this till dark 100. The FBI, the agency in charge with investigating all of this, y'all go home, we'll call you later. Wow. I can promise you, if Captain Higgins had been on scene with any authority the day it happened, it would not have been handled this way. If any decent investigator had been there, is it complacency? Is it I don't give a damn? Is it we didn't have the resources here and it's too hard to get them out here on a weekend night? I don't know. I really wonder. Now, this goes on. The FBI released the crime scene after just 3 days, much to everyone's surprise. I interviewed several first responders who expressed everything from surprise to dismay to suspicion regarding the fact that the FBI released the crime scene so early after J13. It should be noted that the FBI was fully aware of the fact that Congress would be investigating. The FBI does not exist in a vacuum. They had to know that releasing the J13 crime scene would injure the immediate observation of the following investigation. The FBI cleaned up biological evidence, i.e. blood spatter and patterns, that type of thing, from the crime scene, which is unheard of. Cops don't do that, ever. Interesting. Yeah, very, very, very poor management from, the FBI in my book. I'll tell you, you go to a situation where there is a shooting or attempted shooting, a murder, a crime scene of this magnitude, it doesn't get cleaned up and released that fast. And when was the last time you've ever seen the police do a crime scene cleanup, hosing down the evidence? It doesn't happen. That, again, whether it's lazy, not knowing, not being sure, I don't know. I don't get that. I'm not saying cover up. I'm saying complacency. But on J13, one of Crook's shots hit a pressurized hydraulic line on a staged piece of equipment, heavy equipment. My effort to examine the hydraulic line evidence revealed that the tractor belonged to a rental company. It is unknown if that hydraulic line was harvested properly as evidenced by the FBI, but it certainly should have been. It remains a question for further investigation. I need to examine that hydraulic line because confirmation of the caliber of the rifle projectile that hit the line would be helpful to our investigation. That's how the examination of evidence works. We have to look at everything. Go on, Captain Higgins. Yeah. Now this gets better. My effort to examine Crook's body on Monday, August 5th caused quite a stir and revealed a disturbing fact. The FBI released the body for cremation 10 days after J13. On J23, Crooks was gone. Nobody knew this until Monday, August 5th, including the county coroner, law enforcement, sheriff, etc. Yes, Butler County coroner technically had legal authority over the body, but I spoke with the coroner, and he would never have released Cook's body to the family for cremation or burial without specific permission from the FBI. Why was this, run through? Yeah, we could keep going. The coroner's report and autopsy are both late. As of Monday, August 5th, they were a week late. The problem with me not being able to examine the actual body is that I won't know 100% if the coroner's report and autopsy are accurate. We will never know. Yes, we will get the reports and pictures, etc., but I will never be able to say with certainty that those reports and pictures are accurate according to my own examination of the body. Again, similar to releasing the crime scene, scrubbing the crime scene biological, this action by the FBI can only be described by any reasonable man as obstruction to any following investigative effort. Please note, Mr. Chairman, on J13, the day his body was released, it was cremated. That day, both Homeland Security Committee and Oversight Committee had already begun the House jurisdictional investigation into J13. Speaker Johnson had already stated that he was forming an official congressional investigative body. Why then, and by what measure, would the FBI release the body to the family for cremation? This pattern of evidence by scorched earth of the FBI is quite troubling. And we'll back up here for a second. Again, he's not necessarily saying that the FBI is covering something up or is doing something bad, wrong, or evil. But there is a question. If you've got one of the most major incidents, and Congress is already saying, we've got an investigative committee, we're doing this, we're doing that, and the FBI, who was in charge of the crime scene, is out hosing off evidence. Yep, don't worry about the body. We're not sure if they got the hydraulic line or not. It's not good practice. Now, again, it may be their practice. It's not the right one. I've known of places where they've had shootings that have been, locked down for a week or more afterwards, not turned over in 3 days, and especially not, a shooting of this magnitude. Again, while we can't say there's definitely something bad here, it just, it's a poor practice. Whether the poor practice is evidence of something more incestuous or more insipid than that, I can't say. It's just not the way you do it. And I think this gentleman knows the way you do it. And he's not afraid to call balls and strikes. He's not afraid to, go tap the FBI on the shoulder and say, you hosed off my crime scene. What were you thinking? You had the body released in less than 10 days. Folks, if you've had a loved one or dealt with something that's a crime scene, especially of this magnitude, it doesn't happen. Let's see here. It should be noted that my initial investigation on the ground in Butler was greatly assisted by the county's tactical team commander and the head investigator for the Butler County DA's office. Those gentlemen had nothing to hide, and they were 100% accommodating despite my rather intense demands on their time and resources due to the compressed schedule I was working with. My initial assessment of local law enforcement overall performance on J13 is that ESU was very professionally deployed and commanded. Yes, it was chaotic, and every single police officer reflects upon dangerous and extreme engagements, and we universally critique our own performance because crazy things happen on the street. However, my professional assessment for purposes of this preliminary investigative report is that Butler County ESU performed quite well under the circumstances. So he's given Butler County. They're cooperating. They're helpful. They're showing him around. The AGR people are letting him wander through their office and meet with their employees. Butler County's got all the tapes for him. The FBI hosed off the crime scene and got rid of the body. And yeah. As we go further here, it's really interesting. The owner and top management of the business, AGR, stayed with me and 2 county investigators for 3 hours as I covered every inch I needed, inside, outside, and on the rooftops, climbing on AC units, etc. He was very helpful and 100% squared away. Now remember, AGR dude, he's running a business. This is a total interruption of his world. But he realizes the importance of this and says, look, me, my people, whatever you need, I'm here as long as you need me. And he takes hours out of his day, out of running his business, doing his job. Again, stayed with him and the county investigators for over 3 hours. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the water tower here, and I really think this is kind of interesting we get in. He recreated every step of the county tactical team, inside movement, crooks outside, examined every window. It was a long, hot, and the AGR exec stayed with us. No restrictions whatsoever on where they let him go in the building. Great. That's what we need. The water tower was cleared by drone J13 morning by County Tactical Commander ESU Commander Lenz himself. The water tower ladder was never lowered that day. 2 local cops, non-ESU officers, were assigned to be parked in the water tower area as a response unit for traffic issues or whatever. They did leave that post, but only in the hour prior to the shooting. Now, the way they phrase that, they left their post. They were assigned there to be able to leave that post and deal with issues in that area. So I'm not going to really throw rocks at them that they left their post, because they were not posted to secure the water tower. They were posted as response units for traffic issues and other things. Now, he goes on here into the videos, and this is really, really interesting because there's been a lot of talk about videos. There are videos on the internet showing a dark figure or shadow on the water tower on J13. If there had been someone on that tower on J13, it would have to have been some top shelf operator way beyond anything I've ever seen. Regular SWAT ops or snipers would not have the skills and gear to quickly overcome the first 25 feet of no ladder and then climb the remaining 75 feet to the catwalk, then the quite intimidating and precarious dome vent access ladder. Yeah, if you're not familiar with water towers, once you climb up to the ladder going around the perimeter of the dome, trying to get up to where the vent stack is on top, you're on a very smooth angled surface. It's not exactly a nice ladder to climb. Don't ask me how I know. So from this standpoint, again, if they had had 25 feet of no ladder, now if they had brought a fire department ground ladder or something, yes, they can overcome it. But it's not something that they're set up to routinely overcome. You know, this is high-end spec ops stuff. Because again, you got to remember, these guys are not set up to just go popping up the water tower when you've got rifles and gear and class 4 gear, all kinds of equipment. You know, you not only have your own body weight, but you've probably got about 100 pounds of other stuff strapped all over the place. And it's not a fun climb. So again, and then climbing up the edge to him. So let's see here. It's true, the vent area at the very top is the only point that would have allowed a clear line of sight to both Trump and Crook's firing positions. I cited out this fact very carefully during my hours on the ground at Butler Farm AGR. However, I do not believe it was possible for a second shooter or sniper to be on top of the water tower on J13, nor have I seen any evidence that supports the theory of the second shooter. I'm not saying conclusively that there was no other shooter somewhere or that no other conspirators were involved in J13, but I am saying that based on my investigation thus far, there were 10 shots fired on J13. All shots are accounted for, and all shots align with their source. Crooks 8, 3 initial plus 5. ESU SWAT gets 1 off, and then the U.S. Secret Service gets 1 off. That's what he's saying. Okay. Now, interestingly, he says, I will be allowed to climb the water tower at some point, perhaps next month, but it's quite a climb. The Butler County Waterworks directors were very concerned about accommodating my climb, although they did agree at a later date. I'll have to return when I can coordinate with their safety team because we just ran out of daylight. Butler Waterworks was cooperative, and I got a close look at the water tower on Monday, August 5th. So he never got on the tower, but they did check it by drone. They did look at it. He's got a pretty good idea. You know, if we had no clue where this came from, then maybe we'd sort of wonder. But I think we know enough to kind of rule that down. Mr. Chairman, many questions remain. Yet several theories have been examined and several questions already been answered. I'm prayerful our task force can move forward effectively and professionally, guided by our shared love for America and our determination to seek full truth. Please know as we continue our investigation into the attempted assassination of our former president, you can rely upon me as a solemn investigator of that fact. It is with that spirit that I submit this confidential preliminary investigative report. Signed, Congressman Clay Higgins. Folks, if you're in Louisiana, give this guy a vote or two. Honestly, this is the most decent version of these investigations that I've seen for so long. Everybody said, oh, we have to have an investigation. Guess what? He did it. He went out there, he crawled around on the roof, he spent 2 days and went over the whole thing. I mean, honestly, you know, I'm sure he traveled out the first day, went out there, did what he could, met with everybody, met with ESU. And again, he's a cop's cop. They're going to talk to him. You know, let's face it. Cops may or may not like talking to politicians. Normally, they'll talk to other cops, especially this guy who's got a reputation as a cop's cop. What does they want? What are they trying to do? They're trying to be honest, you know. I'm going to be interested in following his stuff. Again, I appreciate y'all coming in here. This is going to be an ongoing. I'm not going to milk it. I'm not going to do a update every day or every night or every weekend on it because that's bullshit. It doesn't work that way. I will do updates on this and I will put part 4 or part 5 or part 6 or however far we go when there is something tangible to share. I truly felt that this letter from Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana was very, very, very worth sharing because, again, it talks about a few things. It talks about goods and bads. To me, the Secret Service not picking up the radios that they were told about that morning, that's an epic fail. You lose points major on that one. We don't have communications, you ain't got nothing. The fact that he wasn't able to personally witness the body, but he's going to get the pictures and everything. Hey, that's great. Good enough. I'd like to have more, but the fact that we're now hearing that the kid was shot with 1 round from ESU that damaged his weapon possibly and fragged him, and then a second shot, that's a big one. The fact that we had heard about a hydraulic hose that was leaking or hit or damaged, the fact that he's gone through and figured out what piece of equipment, what rental company it was from, definitely he is doing the thorough job that an investigator, and when I say investigator, I'm talking professional investigator, would do. So, beyond that, folks, I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Thank y'all for coming, checking it out. If you have questions, by all means, go ahead and drop me a note. I'm always wanting to hear from questions, hear observations, different thoughts. Here's our information. You can follow us on X or Twitter, Facebook. We do a lot of stuff on locals. I'll probably publish this report on locals PDF format, and you can actually get a copy of it. Our Rumble library, as always, has all of our videos in it, and you can email me directly at mike.southeastdefense@gmail.com. And if you want to support our channel, please like, share. If you want to, throw us a tip in locals or throw us a donation on PayPal. We want to make this content available. Again, this is far from my full-time job in my career. it is something that I'm passionate about, however, getting truth out there. So check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.
In shadows we stand tall, heartbeats echo through the hall. I search in